Chapter 7, Sexual Response and Sexual Behavior. Although we may be culturally attuned to focus on sex differences rather than similarities, the physiological responses of both men and women to sexual stimulation are actually quite similar. So, Masters and Johnson came up with a four-phase sexual response cycle. They divided the sexual response cycle into four different phases: excitement, plateau, orgasm, and resolution. We're going to look at each of those four phases. The excitement phase. In males, vasocongestion, which is a swelling of the genital tissues with blood, produces penile erection. The skin of the scrotum thickens and the testes increase in size. In females, vasocongestion causes the clitoris to swell, the labia majora to flatten and spread, and the labia minora to increase in size. The uterus also becomes engorged and elevated, and the breasts enlarge. Both males and females may show what's called a sex flush, which is a rosy coloration of the skin. Heart rate, blood pressure, and myotonia, which is muscle tension, tend to increase. The plateau phase. In males, the coronal ridge increases in circumference slightly, and the glans darkens in hue. The testes elevate further, and Cowper's glands secrete a few droplets of fluid. In females, the outer third of the vagina swells, while the inner part expands fully. During this stage, the ever-elusive clitoris actually shortens and withdraws beneath the clitoral hood. Coloration of the labia minora occurs. The plateau phase precedes orgasm. So during this stage, the level of arousal remains somewhat constant. In both males and females, respiratory rate, heart rate, and blood pressure continue to rise. The orgasmic phase. In males, this phase consists of two stages. During the emission phase, the vas deferens, seminal vesicles, ejaculatory duct, and prostate glands contract, which causes seminal fluid to collect at the base of the penis. Then the internal urinary sphincter contracts that prevents semen from entering the bladder. Now, during the ejaculation phase, the external sphincter of the bladder relaxes and muscles surrounding the urethra and base of the penis contract at 0.8 second intervals, causing semen to be ejected from the body. This is associated with the sensation of pleasure. In females, pelvic muscles, the uterus, and the anal sphincter contract, also at 0.8 second intervals, so the same as what happens with males. So in both males and females, these muscle spasms occur throughout the body. Blood pressure, heart rate, and respiratory rate peak. Several studies have suggested that when men and women each write out their experience of their orgasm, and then you give them to people to read, you can't tell a difference between what were the male descriptions and what were the female descriptions. So the subjective experience of orgasm for men and women is virtually the same. The resolution phase. During this phase, the body returns to its pre-aroused state. Muscle tension, blood pressure, heart rate, and respiration return to normal within a few minutes. Males lose their erection in two stages. About half the volume of the erection is lost within a minute after ejaculation. The remaining tumescence subsides over a period of several minutes. Now, unlike women, men have a refractory period during which they are physiologically incapable of experiencing another orgasm or ejaculation. In women, the clitoris, vagina, uterus, and labia attain their pre-aroused sizes within about 10 to 15 seconds. Women have no refractory period and can become re-aroused to multiple orgasms if they desire. There's a diagram on the next slide which illustrates the refractory period for both men and for women. Now, if one is aroused but does not reach orgasm, myotonia and vasocongestion may take an hour or more to dissipate, which may cause an uncomfortable aching in the pelvis. The slang term for this in males is blue balls. Blue balls are not dangerous and can be relieved through masturbation or will simply subside with time. As an alternative to Masters and Johnson's four-phase sexual response cycle, Helen Singer Kaplan developed a three-stage model of sexual response consisting of desire, excitement, and orgasm. Clinicians may use this model in classifying sexual dysfunctions, including the dysfunctions of desire, either due to low or absent desire, excitement, problems with penile erection or vaginal lubrication, and orgasm, either premature ejaculation or orgasmic dysfunction. So Masters and Johnson defined multiple orgasm as one or more additional orgasms following the first within a short period of time and before the body has returned to a pre-plateau level of arousal. Now, all women may have a biological capability for multiple orgasms, although not all women report them. Some men have two or more dry orgasms, an orgasm without an ejaculation, that may precede a final ejaculatory orgasm. Sigmund Freud proposed that there were two types of female orgasm, the clitoral orgasm and the vaginal orgasm. Clitoral orgasms were achieved through direct clitoral stimulation, while vaginal orgasms were achieved through coitus, through intercourse. Freud argued that women achieve sexual maturity when they forsake or give up the clitoral stimulation for vaginal stimulation. Now, Masters and Johnson were only able to find one type of orgasm when they did their research, and that was regardless of the source of stimulation. An aphrodisiac is a substance that arouses or increases one's capacity for sexual pleasure or response. The belief that a substance has sexually stimulated effects may itself inspire sexual excitement. Now, a number of foods have been considered aphrodisiacs. These foods include oysters, tomatoes, potatoes, as well as foods that in some way resemble male genitals, such as bananas and celery. I remember when I was younger, it was supposed to be green M&Ms were supposed to be an aphrodisiac. Other drugs and psychoactive substances may have effects on sexual arousal and response. Arginine from the African yohimbe tree stimulates blood flow to the genitals. Poppers, or amyl nitrate, have been used mostly by gay men. Poppers dilate blood vessels in the brain and genitals, possibly facilitating erection and prolonging orgasm. Now, Viagra was originally designed as a treatment for angina, for heart issues, because it increases the blood flow to the heart. It has become now a very popular treatment for erectile dysfunction due to its dilatory effects on the genital blood vessels. Viagra itself does not cause an erection, but it facilitates an erection. Wellbutrin, which is an antidepressant drug, increases the amount of dopamine in the brain synapses and can increase the sex drive. The most potent aphrodisiac in both men and women may be testosterone. Proper diet and exercise may also increase the sex drive by boosting energy, general health, and well-being. But novelty may be the most potent aphrodisiac of all. Some drugs that are considered to be aphrodisiacs are particularly dangerous. Spanish fly, which is extracted from a Spanish beetle, contains an irritant that inflames the urethra. Overdoses of Spanish fly can be fatal. And then there are date rape drugs that can be slipped into the drinks of unsuspecting women, lowering their inhibitions and rendering them incapable of resisting a sexual assault. Date rape drugs such as Ropanol, also known as roofies, and GHB. They are illegal in the United States. And roofies are actually prescribed as a sleeping pill in Europe and Latin America. Anaphrodisiacs are inhibitors of sexual response. Saltpeter, which is potassium nitrate, acts as a diuretic, which may indirectly decrease one's sex drive. Tranquilizers and depressants can also lessen sexual desire and impair sexual performance. In some people, however, they may enhance sexual arousal by lessening sexual inhibitions. Certain antidepressants, such as Prozac, may diminish the sex drive, impair erectile response, and delay ejaculation and orgasm. Nicotine constricts your blood vessels, which can also impede sexual arousal by reducing the capacity of the genitals to become engorged with blood. Anti-androgen drugs, such as Depo-Provera, have been used in the treatment of deviant sexual behavior patterns. And psychoactive drugs may have an effect on sexual response. Small amounts of alcohol are stimulating, largely due to people's expectations of the alcohol, diminished sexual inhibitions, and impairment of judgment. But large amounts of alcohol actually curb sexual response. Binge drinking is connected with high-risk sexual behavior, sexual promiscuity, and sexual assault. While marijuana probably doesn't directly stimulate sexual response, it may increase the awareness of bodily sensation and empathy with others, which could heighten subjective feelings of sexual response. LSD and mescaline may also enhance sexual response. Stimulants such as amphetamines and cocaine generally activate the central nervous system, which then elevates the mood, and that could contribute to sexual arousal. However, long-term use of amphetamines and cocaine may also result in a dependence on the drug for sexual arousal. Erogenous zones are parts of the body that are especially sensitive to tactile sexual stimulation. Now, there are primary erogenous zones which are richly endowed with nerve endings. They include areas that are generally located near body openings, genitals, lips, ears, as well as breasts, navel, and armpits. Secondary erogenous zones are parts of the body that become erotically sensitized more through experience. Although it is not an erogenous zone, the brain is sometimes referred to as the most important sexual organ. People are highly responsive to images and fantasies, and the brain plays a central role in sexual functioning. Thoughts, memories, and images can enhance or inhibit sexual response. The cerebral cortex plays a key role in sexual response. Cells in the cortex fire when we experience thoughts, images, wishes, and fantasies. Cortical cells also interpret sensory information and provide the conscious sense of self to judge sexual behavior as proper or improper. The limbic system, which is important in emotional response, also plays a role in sexual functioning. Stimulation of certain areas of the thalamus and hypothalamus may trigger erection or ejaculation. So, are there pleasure centers in the brain? A pleasure center may exist in the hypothalamus of the limbic system. When electrodes in the medial forebrain bundle of the limbic system are stimulated, animals will repeatedly bar press to self-stimulate these areas. Stimulation of these centers in humans results in feelings of sexual arousal and gratification. Hormones are substances secreted from endocrine glands directly into the bloodstream. Hormones regulate various bodily functions, including growth, resistance to stress, and sexual functions. Sex hormones have organizing and activating effects on behavior. As an organizing effect, they influence the type of behavior that is expressed. In rats, testosterone differentiates the brain in the masculine direction, allowing the adult male rats to display stereotypical masculine behaviors. They also regulate the frequency or intensity of the drive motivating the behavior, an activating effect. Castration of adult male rats leads to suppression of sexual activity. When testosterone is administered to these rats, they resume stereotypical male sexual behavior. The role of sex hormones in determining the sexual orientation and drives of humans is much more subtle than in lower animals. Questions remain about the organizing effects of sex hormones on human sexual behavior. Prenatal sex hormones affect the sexual differentiation of the genitalia and of brain structures. Their role in patterning sexual behavior in adults remains unknown. So, how do sex hormones impact male sexual behavior? If you remove the testes, a procedure called surgical castration, That can lead to a gradual decrease in the incidence of a man's sexual fantasies and also create a loss of sexual desire. These men also tend to gradually lose the capacity to attain erection and ejaculate. This effect can also be attained chemically. Estrogen and progesterone play important roles in promoting female secondary sexual characteristics and in regulating the menstrual cycle, although they don't appear to play a direct role in determining sexual motivation or response in human females. In most mammals, females are sexually receptive only during estrus, which corresponds to peak estrogen levels. Human females, however, are sexually responsive during all phases of the menstrual cycle. Sexual responsiveness in women may be in fact influenced by androgens. Women's sexual activity increases at points in the menstrual cycle when androgen levels are high. When the ovaries and the adrenal glands are removed, women gradually lose sexual desire, although cognitive and experiential factors affect their sexual response. In women whose ovaries have been removed, hormonal replacement of both estrogen and androgens heightens sexual desire more than estrogen replacement alone. Various forms of sexual expression do not require a partner or are not generally practiced in the presence of a partner. Masturbation involves the direct stimulation of the genitals. It may be practiced by manual stimulation of the genitals or with the aid of artificial stimulation, such as a vibrator. People may masturbate for reasons other than pleasure. These reasons include relaxation, relief of tension, boredom, or even as a sleeping aid. Within the Judeo-Christian tradition, masturbation has been strongly condemned as sinful, reflecting the censure applied during non-procreative sexual acts. Historically, there has been a very negative view of masturbation. Masturbation was believed to cause tuberculosis, blindness, epilepsy, as well as other unfortunate conditions, including death. And not only were there physical issues, but also you could be mentally harmed as a result. Psychologically, male masturbation was thought to lead to impotence with women and encourage male-male activity. According to current views on masturbation, there is no scientific evidence that it's harmful. And in fact, most people do masturbate at some time, and it can be used as a therapeutic technique for individuals who are experiencing some sort of sexual dysfunction. Most men report that they masturbate by manual manipulation of the penis. Some men prefer to use some sort of lubrication to reduce friction, and the typical time to orgasm from masturbation is generally 1 to 2 minutes. There is wide variation in women's masturbatory techniques. However, some general trends have been noted. Most women tend to use external stimulation for masturbation, and while some women might use vibrators, others find this type of stimulation too intense. Partners' feelings for one another and the quality of their relationships may be a stronger determinant in sexual arousal and response than the techniques that they use. Communication is the most important sexual technique and may occur for its own enjoyment or even as a form of foreplay. It may just also be an affectionate gesture without erotic significance. Foreplay is various forms of non-coital sex, meaning that there is not actual intercourse. Foreplay can include cuddling, kissing, as well as manual and oral genital contact. These activities can be experienced as ends in of themselves, as well as a prelude to intercourse. The pattern and duration of foreplay varies widely within and across cultures. Generally, women want longer periods of foreplay than men do. Kissing is almost universal in Western culture, but is actually unknown in some cultures. In simple kissing, the mouths are kept closed. In deep kissing, what can also be called French kissing, the partners part their lips and insert tongues into each other's mouths. Kissing is not limited to the partner's mouth. Other parts of the body are also often kissed. Touching of erogenous zones can be highly arousing. Both men and women generally prefer manual or oral stimulation of the genitals as a prelude to intercourse. While men typically prefer the touching early in lovemaking, women tend to prefer their partner's caress after a longer period of general body contact. Techniques for manual stimulation of the genitals can vary greatly, which is why communication is highly encouraged during partnered sex. Breasts and nipples in both sexes are erotically sensitive, although men are more likely to stimulate women's breasts than vice versa. Again, there are great variations in individuals. While some individuals do not enjoy having their breasts touched, some women actually can achieve orgasm simply from stimulation of the breasts. Fellatio is the term used for oral stimulation of the male genitals. Cunnilingus refers to oral stimulation of the female genitals. Kinsey found in their research that at least 60% of married, college-educated couples reported experiencing oral genital contact. These rates greatly decreased in less educated couples. Recent studies have shown an even higher incidence of oral sex, and the incidence of oral sex does appear to correlate with the level of education. There are a number of reasons people may abstain from oral sex. They may be disturbed by genital odors or taste, and contrary to myth, it is impossible to become pregnant by swallowing semen, nor is semen fattening. Sexual intercourse, or coitus, is sexual activity in which the penis is inserted into the vagina. There are endless numbers of possible coital positions, but we're going to focus on 4 of the most commonly used positions: male superior, female superior, lateral entry, and rear entry. The male superior position, or man on top. The male superior position is also called the missionary position. Partners face each other with the man lying above the woman, supporting himself on his hands and knees. This position has the advantage of face-to-face contact, as well as giving the woman the ability to easily stroke her partner's body. A disadvantage of this position is that the woman has less opportunity to control the angle and depth of penetration. Also, the man has less opportunity to caress his partner, which can decrease her chance of achieving orgasm. The female superior, or woman on top position, the couple faces one another with the woman lying or sitting on top of the man. This position also has the advantage of face-to-face contact, as well as giving the woman the ability to control the angle, depth, and speed of thrusting. Also in this position, men may more easily manually stimulate the woman's breasts or genitals. The lateral entry position, or side entry, is when the man and woman lay side by side facing each other. An advantage of this position is that partners have relatively free movement and access to each other. Also, as both are lying down, it is not as physically taxing on one partner over another. However, inserting the penis into the vagina from this position can be awkward. Women may not receive adequate clitoral stimulation from the penis in this position. The rear entry position can also be called doggy style. In this position, the man faces the woman's rear. The woman may support herself on her hands and knees while the man enters her from behind. Partners do not get to face each other in this position, and thus it may create a sense of emotional distance. People may use sexual fantasies when they are alone or with a partner. While masturbating, people often require some sort of cognitive stimulation, fantasy or erotica, to increase their arousal to the point of orgasm. Most people have sexual fantasies, even during sexual activity with someone else. In one study, 98% of men and 80% of women reported sexual fantasies about someone other than their sex partner. People who have sexual fantasies are not more likely to have sexual or social problems. In fact, the opposite may be true. Most married couples have sexual fantasies. Theoretically, women are more likely to fantasize about the images of familiar lovers. Men are more likely to have fantasies of domination, while women are more likely to have fantasies about submission. Frequency of sexual fantasizing is related to testosterone levels in both males and females.